Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and today we are talking about Amazon's massive bet on podcast advertising. Let me get you up to speed on what Amazon's done in podcasting so far. Up until about a year ago, Amazon had done almost nothing in the podcasting space, and then all of a sudden, two of its platforms, Amazon Music and Audible, suddenly opened up their libraries so that any podcaster could submit their podcast to them. So basically, if you had any kind of podcast feed, you could manually submit it to both of these platforms, and then suddenly you could access virtually any podcast on the internet on these platforms. And simultaneously, they started basically signing large deals and acquisitions where they could get exclusive content on their platforms. With Audible, it's mainly just a bunch of small one-on-one deals, but with Amazon Music, that platform has signed some massive deals. Like, for instance, it bought Wondery, which was a large podcast network with over 100 shows, for $300 million. It also has signed some big deals with celebrities, including one celebrity podcast called Smartless. It has Will Arnett and Jason Bateman hosting in it. That deal was worth about $80 million over a 3-year period. So it's really went from a year ago barely having any footprint to all of a sudden having a very large footprint. So at first we thought basically the reason Amazon Music was trying to get all these deals was because it wanted to have exclusive content on its own platform so it could grow Amazon Music and make it a better competitor to bigger platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. And while that's part of the strategy, it's really only a small part of it, because most of the podcasts that are being locked down in these deals aren't being locked into Amazon Music's platform. If they have any kind of exclusivity at all, it's for a small window, and then they're later distributed across all podcast platforms. So what we're now learning through a report from Bloomberg is that actually Amazon's much bigger ambitions are with podcast advertising. Basically, it buys up the distribution rights to all these major podcasts, and then it uses its hosting and ad technology to then sell ads that show up within the podcast regardless of what platform you stream or download it on it. In fact, it also bought a company called Art19, which is a podcast distribution and ad tech company. And so there's a ton of opportunity there to insert dynamic ads into these podcasts and just have massive distribution across Spotify, across Apple Podcasts, across Stitcher. And it turns out that's where Amazon sees a lot of its podcast revenue coming from, is through podcasts that are distributed outside Amazon-owned platforms. So why should we take Amazon's advertising ambition seriously? Well, it's not really a big player in the podcast space in the sense that, like, Amazon Music and Audible, like the number of downloads they're receiving in podcasts are pretty negligible. For me, my own podcast, it's probably like fewer than 1% of my downloads. But Amazon is a massive advertising company. In fact, it's the fastest growing advertising company in the world. Within the next year, it's going to generate $28 billion in advertising revenue. Most of that's coming on the Amazon platform, but it's also selling ads through things like Twitch, through its IMDb channel. Obviously, there's a huge opportunity there with like the Amazon Echo that's incoming. There are just so many different places, so many places where Amazon owns the distribution or the audience, and advertisers are really waking up to the level of targeting and efficacy of ads that run on the Amazon platform. It's third behind Facebook and Google in terms of digital advertising, and it's gaining traction very quickly. Like it just 2 or 3 years ago, it was a tiny player in the advertising space, and now it's in the top 3, which is just incredible. So what does this mean for the future? Like right now, podcast advertising is only a $1 billion a year business. So that's obviously a rounding error for a massive tech behemoth like Amazon. But there's tons of growth ahead of it, and I think Amazon is going to capture a lot of that growth. And the reason that I think that is because it already has an amazing track record with advertising. Okay, those are all the thoughts I had. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and definitely check out my newsletter, simonowens.substack.com. Okay, see you later this week.